The Christmas tree that wouldn't stop growing. Once upon a time, in a little town covered in snow, there was a family getting ready for Christmas. The Wilsons, like every year, went to the local Christmas tree farm to pick out the perfect tree. But this year, Mrs. Wilson wanted something different. "Let's get the biggest tree we can find this year," she declared with a twinkle in her eye. Mr. Wilson, who loved a challenge, grinned. "Biggest it is." The Wilson kids, Toby and Emma, were less enthusiastic. Toby, who was 14 and obsessed with video games, didn't see why they couldn't just decorate the virtual tree in his favorite game. Emma, 12, was more interested in watching holiday rom-coms than picking out an actual tree. Nevertheless, the family bundled up and headed to the tree farm, where they found it, a massive, towering evergreen that seemed to touch the sky. "That one." Mr. Wilson pointed triumphantly. The tree farmer scratched his head. Are you sure you want this one? It's special." Mrs. Wilson, without hesitation, nodded. "Absolutely." They tied it to the car, drove home with a lot of nervous glances from other drivers, and squeezed it through the front door. After a lot of sweating, tugging, and bumping it into things, the tree was finally standing in the living room, its top brushing the ceiling. That night, the family decorated it with lights, ornaments, tinsel, and a star on top. They stood back and admired their masterpiece. "Looks perfect," Mrs. Wilson said. But something strange happened overnight. The next morning, Toby and Emma stumbled down the stairs, groggy and not yet awake. As soon as they reached the living room, they froze. The tree was taller. Mom? Dad?" Toby called out. "I think we have a problem." The tree had grown at least 3 feet overnight, and now its branches were pressing against the ceiling, causing some of the ornaments to pop off and bounce across the floor. Mr. Wilson, half awake, waved it off. "It's fine, just growing pains." But the tree wasn't done. Every night, it grew taller and taller, until it punched a hole through the roof. Now, half of the tree was inside the house, and half was sticking out the top like a giant pine popsicle. Mrs. Wilson tried to stay positive. "Well, at least we won't have to worry about snow on the roof now." But the tree kept going. By Christmas Eve, it had grown so tall that it was visible from outer space. Astronauts were taking selfies with the Earth's first interstellar Christmas tree. The town's residents began complaining because the tree's massive shadow had blocked out the sun, and birds were using it to build nests the size of small cars. Mr. Wilson tried trimming it, but it just grew back faster. Toby, of course, tried to hack the tree with a chainsaw, but the chainsaw broke. Emma suggested maybe the tree needed some holiday rom-coms to slow it down, but that didn't work either. In a last-ditch effort, the Wilsons called the tree farmer for advice. "I warned you," he said over the phone, chuckling. "That tree you bought is from the North Pole. It feeds on Christmas spirit. The more festive you are, the bigger it gets." "Great!" Emma groaned. "We're too Christmassy." The family, desperate to control the tree, decided to try the unthinkable. They canceled Christmas. No carols. No cookies. No presents. They even wore regular, boring clothes instead of their usual matching Christmas pajamas. They ate plain toast for dinner and sat in silence, avoiding eye contact with the growing tree. And it worked. The tree slowly shrank back down until it was a reasonable height again. But the Wilsons, exhausted from all the chaos, decided to keep things low-key for the rest of the holiday season. On Christmas morning, they exchanged just one gift each and skipped the big Christmas dinner. The tree remained stable, content with their slightly underwhelming holiday cheer. As the family sat around the tree that evening, Mrs. Wilson chuckled. "Well, that was different." Toby, now back to his video games, nodded. "Next year, I vote for a virtual tree." Emma, scrolling through rom-coms on her tablet, sighed. "Agreed. And maybe no tree farms with special trees, okay?" Mr. Wilson simply grinned. "We'll see." But from that day forward, the Wilsons made sure to celebrate Christmas with just the right amount of spirit, not too little, but definitely not too much. And the tree? It was happy too, standing tall but not too tall, in its cozy corner of the living room. Well, until next Christmas. But that's a different story.